Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here, the co-host of this show. Check out some of our past interviews. We've got all kinds of great episodes with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of all kinds of companies and organizations like Netflix, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation, Blizzard, and many more. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And this episode is part of our Global Leadership Conference series. The Global Leadership Conference, or GLC, is a conference for emerging business leaders. It's put on by the Entrepreneurs Organization each year, known as EO. I'm a member of EO. Our guest is a member of EO. I'll be attending this year's event. And we created this series to highlight this great conference. This year, it's both in-person and virtual. In-person in Washington, D.C., April 23rd to 26th, 2022, and also in Barcelona, Spain. And it's also virtual as well. So there's a virtual option as well. It's open to all EO members worldwide. Go to eonetwork.org to learn more about it. And our guest is Christina Harbridge. She's the founder of Allegory Inc. It's a company that helps with learning and development and trains companies with design and systems. And she'll talk a little bit about that. She also helped launch a political training organization in 2002, which I was aware of and had some connections to many years ago. So it's really cool for us to cross paths now over that. They're now in 27 states, trained multi-thousands, 4,000 or 5,000 different candidates, which is really cool. Christina, so excited to have you here today. And let's start with this call center. This is crazy. So you, in your early 20s, you decide that the call center industry is kind of evil because they do all kinds of tricks in order to sorry, not the call center industry, but debt collector industry.
Yeah.
You all kinds of tricks in order to get people to pay money. And you had a better idea of doing it. So tell us about it.
Okay, can we just acknowledge the elephant in the room? John, you have an amazing voice. You sound like a trained radio person. So I'm getting lulled into that voice. So yes, I went to work at a collection agency because I had to make money. My dad was sick. And my first day, I heard the nicest people in the break room be absolutely toxic and evil on the phone. So I just had this idea that moment. I was 19 at the time, that I have to start a collection agency that collects debt by being nice, because all this is out in the world and it's ruining the world. And so that's what I did. So in my early 20s, helped write a software for the collection industry. And we started we get well cards. We help people find jobs. We tried to change the whole thing. And this was not by design. I was not that smart. We collected 3 times more.
Amazing.
Because people were treated well, if they owed the money. If they didn't owe the money, we got them to cancel the debt.
Wow. Amazing.
It's cool.
You end up founding the training company. It's called Emerge, which has trained thousands of different candidates for office. There was a young candidate who's now well-known, the Vice President of the United States, who was one of the impetus behind how you got into that. So tell that story.
Yeah, so Andrea Dusteel is the founder of Emerge. It was her idea. She roped a bunch of us in it. I was on the founding board for Emerge America. And she started it because a woman running for district attorney was looking for, how do you run as a woman? There's just different techniques you want to do to get to that 51% of voters. And so when Andrea realized there wasn't any kind of training for women candidates, she started this organization and roped us all in. And so now we're in 27 states, and we've got, I think the last cycle, 68%, I think, of the Emerge candidates won.
Wow.
So it's really working, and it's pretty powerful. So I'm not on the board anymore. I still teach a few of the states because I love it. But it's pretty incredible impact.
And if no one had done it before, how did you come up with the curriculum? How did you decide this is what we need to teach? This is what we need to train them on what to do?
So I had been doing a lot of behavioral system design work in my company. I had become a NASA test subject to study how your physiology is driving your behavior as a human. And so I'd been teaching candidates already storytelling, which no one was doing. Everyone, the Democratic Party ridiculed me for this soft storytelling thing I was teaching because no one was doing it 30 years ago. But I knew I could see that it was working. My godfather used storytelling to shift people, and I'd watched him do it my whole life. And so the curriculum came from me, of me watching audiences, like getting out of our head and watching what audiences responded to. And so that's why my company is called Allegory, because we defiantly taught storytelling when it was not a thing.
And you founded that in 2006. And did the company come out of your work with Emerge?
No, I had been doing training all along in my other company, in my call center. Companies we would get invited to weddings by the way we collected money. And so our clients are like, how are you getting invited to weddings and we're not? Like, what are you doing? So I started training companies how to create a movement around people, like how people feel about themselves. So when my son was born, I just thought, you know what? I don't want to do the call center stuff anymore. I sold that. I'm just going to do this learning and development stuff because it's super fun to see a company, everyone feel connected to behaviorally to the company and happy. So we just started, I've always been training people.
Yeah. And when did you get involved with Entrepreneurs Organization? What drew you to join the
So
community?
while I had the call center, I was invited, I don't want to be offensive, but I was invited to a YPO event. And when I walked into this event, I'm like, I do not belong here. I don't dress nice enough. Like I don't have any commas after my name. And I walked out being like, I'm just gritty. Like I was raised in a studio apartment. Like I am not this smart. And I met a guy outside the thing that said, are you feeling like you don't belong in there? I go, yeah. He goes, you need to come to me to this thing called EO. It's all founders. We're all gritty. We're all figuring it out. And I walked in that room. I'm like, this is the land of the misfit toys. This is where I belong. And I just loved it. It was the room where everyone was admitting what we didn't know. Like we were all so open to talking about that Johari window, like what we do not know. And I was hooked.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because we're all in different communities. I was one in another community I'm a part of. And I was just reflecting to my business partner this week about how it's so different and people kind of have this facade and they're not willing to let that guard down and admit to what they don't know. What do you credit that to?
One of the things that our global chair said the other day was that the EO has figured out how to scale trust. And I think the way that we do that is being real, that in forum, in events, we go to level 5 with each other. We talk about what's really going on because we want to learn. I don't know. It's almost like we're okay with being wrong. And if you're okay with being wrong, it means you're only going to make the future better because you learned something. And so I think it's the learning and development, in my view, that gets us stuck with each other.
And then let's talk about GLC, Global Leadership Conference. Now, you actually chaired one of the GLCs back in 2007 when it was in San Francisco. Tell us about that experience.
That was with Adam Glickman. We had 600 folks, and it was just incredible. It was such a fun event. And we decided that we wanted to really do something different, physical. We wanted to not just do wall charts and whatever. We wanted to have these dynamic moments. Do you want to hear about one of them?
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So the presidents all came, and there's usually this strategy session that you do or whatever. I got up at like 5 a.m. I had my toddler son with me, and we were running through the halls, racing and like throwing things at each other. And so I went down to the president's room and I'm like, wait a minute, we're not going to have tables and chairs. I got all the banquet folks to help. We cleared out the whole room, ran to my office. We had all these volleyballs, soccer balls, all this beach balls that we used for the training stuff we did, filled the room with a bunch of those. And when the president showed up, we had them play dodgeball, sudden death dodgeball. And I will never forget the look on their faces coming out of that room, like sweaty, but just competitive, hilarious. It was like the energy in the room was so incredible. I got in a little bit of trouble for it, But it was
the
super
hotel.
fun.
They're like, about that security
it was really
deposit.
crazy. And I'll never forget their faces. And so here's what's great about GLC. This is what I love about this organization. Ask what makes EO like. There's these small moments we have with each other that you just can't get anywhere else. So I had kind of forgotten about the dodgeball thing. A couple people, we were laughing, telling the story. I recently went to the Reno chapter because I'm in San Francisco, but I live closer to Reno. They invited me to an event. I'm sitting at a table and a man comes up to me and says, "Hey, you chaired GLC years ago. And I just want to tell you the way it was so touching. Your son was there. You cried on the stage. The way you talked is really, it's always stayed with me. And I really appreciate it." And I said, "Yeah, I got in a little bit of trouble at that event for some of the stuff we did." And so he said, "Which one?" And I told him, "Dodgeball. This is for real. This actually happened. This is so EO." He grabs my hands and he said, "I was in that room and I broke a rib." And I'm like, oh, like, this is horrifying. And I'm about to say, "I'm sorry." He's holding my hands. This is just 2 weeks ago. And he said, "I went to urgent care and they're like, there's no way you broke a rib playing dodgeball. Something is going on." Turned out he had an undiagnosed medical condition that if he would have, he goes, "I was a skier. If I would have fallen, I could have broken my back. Because of that dodgeball, I got the treatment that I needed and it completely improved my life."
Wow.
And this is what GLC does, y'all, or any EO event. Like, we are one story away from our dearest friends. Like, all this time, I had no idea that had happened. It's like there's something powerful about GLC in particular. When we all get together, our lives are improved. Yeah.
That's such a great story. And 15 years later, you hear that. That's amazing that you.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. I stood there and I'm just like, whoa, you just never know. And I think I just encourage all of us, even if we can't be in person, we can create that virtually. Like you and I are doing it right now in our chat before we started. Like, just when EOers get together, we just create magic and impact.
Yeah. What are you most excited? So for this year's event that's in Washington, D.C. and Barcelona, what are you most excited about?
I think what I'm most excited about is what happens in the chat during the speaker. And so the speakers are always incredible and those are great. But there's always these insight when we interact with each other in the chat. If we go virtual, there's always some insight that happens that we wouldn't get in person. And if we're in person, we get it talking to someone one-on-one. So I'm looking forward to those small moments between members that are tangible and nuanced.
That's great. Christina, this has been great talking to you. Where can people go to learn more about you or connect with you, learn about what you do?
Oh, I guess you can just look me up on LinkedIn or, if you're on Facebook, connect with me there. I'm pretty easy to find. Christina Harbridge is a weird name. So it's you can find me on all the things.
Perfect. All right. Christina, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.